Thank you very much, and thank you for coming to my presentation. Can you all hear me? Audio is okay? You can hear me? Excellent. So today I would like to talk about something that is not so technical. Usually I do technical talks, but this clearly is a non-technical talk, but rather an experience-based talk. Quick word about myself. My name is Mario. I'm coming from Germany in Berlin, and I run a company that is called Q53, and we basically do penetration tests and source code audits and these things. It's a rather small company, and I want to leave it as that for a variety of reasons, and some of these reasons we might actually talk about today. I carry a PhD in computer sciences, which I got for looking very sternly at cross-site scripting. So yes, you can have a PhD in cross-site scripting. I was surprised myself. And I maintain a couple of libraries and open source tools, wrote a couple of papers, wrote a couple of books, and yeah, pretty much most of it, if not all of it, you can find for free online. So today we're going to talk about an experience that I made over the past years, because I want to talk about how to create an information security company. What entitles me to do so is the fact that I actually created one myself 12 years ago, and I'm still running it, and it's still going. However, these are my experiences, and it might be that you have different experiences. So your mileage may vary, and it might be that certain details of this talk simply do not apply to you. I apologize in advance, but I also can't really take all the feedback on that because there are so many experiences and eventually the slides would explode. So let's first see who is actually here today. Who here is a penetration tester? Please raise your hand. All right, that's a good majority. Who here is a developer or a defender of web applications? Yes, very nice. Who here is like from the managerial area, like ISO, CISO, CSO, and these things? Okay, thank you very much. And who here is a bug bounty hunter? Almost no one. Oh, interesting. Thank you very much. That gives me like a good idea about the audience and what kind of things to focus on during my presentation. So let's first talk about how this talk is actually being structured. The first act that we're going to talk about is the onboarding. We're going to be talking about like why we want to create an Infosec company, what the motivation might be, what early pitfalls might be, and so on. Then we're going to talk about building it and getting it to run. In the third act, we're going to talk about running the whole thing. And in the final act, and I think that's the most important one, we're going to talk about us humans, because we're going to talk about how to do that whole thing and staying sane at the same time, because sometimes these things can be very challenging. So let's get started and talk about the onboarding, how to get into the position and raise enough motivation to actually build your own security company. Why this talk? Why this motivation? Because why not? I mean, building your own company is not everybody's thing. Some people indeed find employment more fulfilling. They want to have structure. They want to go to the office. They want to have co-workers and all these things. They don't want to build something. They just want to enjoy what other people build, and that's fine as well. If you're of that kind, then probably this talk is not going to be super interesting for you, because you have to have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit to actually take benefits from those slides in this presentation. However, I also heard from a couple of people who are employed that they don't really love it too much. They don't love kind of reporting upwards. They don't love that they have to get up early in the morning. They don't love that they have to wear pants when they work. And all these things seem to them like a small jail. And in addition to that, they might not even get a salary that makes them happy. So they complain. It's like, my job is shit, and I want to kind of do something else, but I do not know what. Why complain when you can indeed kind of press your teeth together and just construct something, build something new that is exactly as you want it. To be quite honest, I was that complainer a long time ago, and at some point I decided it's enough. I don't want to do it anymore. I want to build something myself, and I did it, and then I was happy. Information security companies today have changed. If you look at, for example, the situation 15 years ago, you would find a lot of small shacks, a lot of small companies, and the whole sector was just like still growing, and everything was coming together. And today this is different. Let's look, for example, just as an example, I don't know, NCC Group. I think they're sponsors. I'm not going to say anything bad, of course, and I don't want to say anything bad. I'm just going to use them as an example of how these companies have been developing over time. According to the internet, NCC Group looks like this. They have 35 offices around the world, or more. Meanwhile, they employ more than 2,000 people and are, as they claim, a trusted advisor to 15,000 clients worldwide. So it's a massive corporation. And pretty much it's a corporation like any other. There's like one huge template how you build like these huge businesses, and then you run them, and you make a lot of money, and there's shareholders, and so on and so on. We know the deal, I guess. I think in 2006 they bought Recall Total Information Management and so on and so on. They bought Source Harbor, Securitas, Site Confidence, Escrow Europe, ISEC Partners, and a lot of other companies. So you can see it's pretty much one huge business that buys smaller businesses, and by that it becomes bigger. It doesn't kind of feel like the typical information security company with a bunch of hackers that take apart web applications, mobile applications, and the likes. It's a corporation, a behemoth, so to say, and that's fine. So oftentimes people think that information security companies look like this. Who knows the movie? Very good, very good, very good. But unfortunately, that's not reality. Because what information security companies usually look like is this. And that's fine, but that's not what everybody wants. I mean, you see there's like a lot of diversity and all of them have like almost a similar hair, but anyway, this is what those companies usually look like or what they're ruled with. There's like a boardroom and a couple of old guys in there and they manage everything. Fair enough. But this is not the kind of company we actually want to talk about today because that's boring. And people have been talking about this for ages and ages and ages, and we're probably not really interested in building one of these behemoths. What we want to talk about, what we're aiming to build, is a boutique. What? A boutique, like a small company that wants to stay small, that focuses on quality only, that focuses on having happy employees or happy team members, and doesn't really grow beyond the size of 5 to 20 people, maybe 25, but rarely more than 50, which is team-focused in terms of instead of data-driven. Something like a couple of other companies that I know in Germany that we work together with, Recurity Labs, for example, that was created by FX, or Enable Security, or X41 DSEC, which is also a tiny company, but they're amazing. And they produce amazing work because they have experts and only experts. And there's a couple of other ones out there, of course, and some of them I even know here. So, again, why want to do this talk? Why do we want to kind of talk about how to build one of these boutiques? Because while large corporations exist and they have a purpose, because large companies can build large things, not everything is always great with them. And I had the feeling as well when I was in the situation working with one of these or several of these. Oftentimes, people say bigger is better, but bigger is not necessarily better. Bigger is just bigger. And that means that things take more time. You have long and administratively heavy processes. There's lots of people involved in the business that don't even know the field. I got one good story. So like a friend of mine asked me to kind of get like a quote for a source code scanning of a website, and he didn't do it himself because he owns such company. And then he asked me if I could kind of claim that I'm someone who has a website that wants to be scanned. So if I could please just call one of these companies, I'm not going to say the name, and get like a quote for them, because he was eager to learn how expensive they are, what they actually do, and then I did this. So I did like a fake call and called this company. I wanted to find out how much would it cost if they scan and test against our made-up website, just to get ideas about the pricing. And I called them, and I had some guy on the phone, and he asked me a couple of questions, what we're doing, and how big the website is, and if you can have a look at this thing, and everything was fine. And then he asked me, look, what kind of programming language is the website written in? And I said, PHP. And he said like, PAP, okay, noting that down. It's like, what? You have never had such call before, obviously, because you don't even know the programming languages. I mean, that is like, you don't ask a question when the answer confuses you or you have no idea what it could potentially be, and you embarrass yourself by saying PAP. Or is there a programming language that is called PAP? I don't know, maybe there is one and I'm the idiot, who knows? Anyway, lots of people involved who don't really know the field. There's oftentimes very expensive contracts. Like we had situations where we were competing with a couple of different vendors, and the larger ones oftentimes submitted a quotation that was 20 times the money that we asked for. 20 times, factor 20, that is incredible. So sometimes I get the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, probably I'm wrong, but sometimes I get the feeling that the bigger the company is, that what you get is effectively security for the big and for the rich. But who takes care of the smaller companies? Who tests them? Of activists and so on that also need security? Of open source developers? Who helps them? The huge ones? Maybe not always. Another disadvantage might as well be that it's unclear if the testers that are actually testing your application afterwards are really skilled enough to do so. Because maybe they don't really know their stuff. Maybe they have been put on the wrong project. Rarely do you have transparency in these situations. Who is actually testing your application? And in a small company, that might not be the case, because this transparency might as well be there. Oftentimes you get very generic reports with lots of useless text and pie charts and all sorts of diagrams that no one wants to see and that don't matter at all. Like we've seen sample reports and demo reports of other companies with bugs in there that don't even exist anymore. Stuff like cross-site tracing. Oh my God, cross-site tracing. That doesn't matter anymore. This bug class died 15 years ago. You don't have to have a ticket in your report that complains about cross-site tracing. This is gone, this is over. Yet it's in there just to generate more mass. And it oftentimes feels that financial growth is the most important thing because you need to keep the stake and the shareholders happy. So this is the priority number one. Not quality, but money. And some people just don't want to do this. And I sometimes have the feeling, and again I might be wrong, that with these contracts you might not get enough bang for the buck, and that is sad. Because for some people, money is a scarce resource, and they want to choose wisely and consciously whom to actually work with to get the results that they need. What use is a penetration test that doesn't have good coverage? None at all. I'm not saying that all these things must necessarily be better in a boutique, in a small company, as mentioned 5 to 20 people, not necessarily, but things can be better for all involved parties because oftentimes there's more control for everybody involved, more transparency, not so many hierarchy layers and so on. Smaller sometimes also means it's faster. It is possible to have very short and very economic processes because there is no long communication chains. There's just like 2 or 3 people that the client will ever deal with, and that is fine. Sorry. Oftentimes, all the involved people, both in the company and the specific test, are experts. And the client can see who they are and can check them and learn about them and see, oh, this person gave a conference talk and this person is like really good in this and this and that. So that makes me feel better because I know that the right people are testing my thing. Given that all those administrative processes don't exist and you necessarily don't have a, for example, huge building with flags in front and tons of cars and whatnot, you can ask for cheaper prices. The contracts can be much cheaper. Don't have to be, but they can. As mentioned earlier, we've seen pricing differences for the same scope with factor 20. We offered 60K, another company offered 1.2 million. Where does all the money go? I'm wondering. Oftentimes, clients want to have individualized services. They want to have individualized reports, special formats, they have special needs, they come back after the test, want something again, and that is, in my opinion, also oftentimes easier to handle with a small company. Because otherwise, the huge behemoth must be turned on again, and the whole process needs to be rolling again, and I'm not even sure if that's possible in a large company to do this. Maybe it is, but maybe not. And I often feel that those smaller companies have different focus. They not necessarily have the focus of making more money, because money is not everything, but they rather seem to have the focus of valuing ethics and sustainability over growth and financial gain. I would go as far and say that in the information security business, it's very unlikely that you end up poor, because the services that we charge for are usually quite expensive. Oftentimes too expensive, but if financial growth is not your goal, that's not a problem, because you're going to get rich anyway, as stupid as that may sound. And oftentimes they have the feeling that with smaller companies, you will get much more bang for the buck. And that's a good thing for everybody. You feel better about your services, the client feels better about what they get, they recommend you, there's word of mouth, and so on. If done right. I mean, of course, you can still screw it up. Or someone else whom you partner with and build the company with can screw that up. So the question is how to do that right. And as mentioned, this is just like my account on things, and I might be terrifyingly wrong, but let's see, maybe there's something in there that you can actually use and that benefits you in your own endeavors, because that's the purpose of this presentation. Building it, act number 2. The bootstrapping phase is pretty much the first thing that needs to be there. You need to kind of have the motivation to build your own security company. You have to really want to build it. And you need to know why you want to do that, what your goal is. Maybe you want to sell exploits. Maybe you indeed want to grow a company and sell it later on. Or maybe it's just going to be your brainchild or your baby and you're going to kind of maintain it as long as you can and run with it because it's actually tons of fun. I'm going with a ladder. Like my company I really like because it's really fun and we have just 20 people and I want to keep it like that. And I don't want to sell it. Never. Why would I? So how you build it then afterwards, I think is of secondary importance. Most important is that you know what you want and that your heart is in the right place and that you're acting with the right people for this and then just like pull it off, in my opinion. You need to make a decision about the posture of your company. Do you want to wear a suit or do you want to wear wellies? Do you want to create a template company, or do you want to create a Michelin star restaurant with actual fine dining, pen tests that are so good that people will definitely always come to you because they know what they get? Do you want an exit, or do you need a keeper and run with the company for as long as you can because you love it? Where to stand ethically? What is the goal of the whole operation? Once you're clear on that, you're pretty much equipped already and can start. We're going to talk, needless to say, about the keeper. This is the goal. This is what I want to show in this particular presentation. I don't want to tell you how to build a company that you sell in 2 years. I do want to tell you how to build a company that you keep for as long as you can. The first thing then, when building the whole thing up, it sounds easy, but it's probably the hardest part, is to grow a name. People need to recognize you. People need to see you. People need to learn that you're now on the market, that you're good, that you have expertise, and that you are the right one for them to work with. It's actually not that super hard, because right now we have the situation where everybody can submit conference talks, submit research, work with bug bounty programs, get in touch with other people, network, use Twitter, use social networks, and all these things to kind of make sure that they get recognized, that they get seen. And getting seen is the most important thing. Publish posts, partake in discussions. If, for example, Gareth follows you on Twitter, Gareth Hayes from the UK, then you know already that you came quite far because he follows few people and only those that are relevant. So that's already kind of pointing you in the direction that something is being done right by you. Doesn't have to be just Gareth, but you know, if industry leaders that you know and that you respect kind of look at you and see you, then you have made the first step in the right direction, which is good. Write a lot of papers if you have the chance. Publish, find new bugs, bug classes, win hacking challenges, get seen, engage with others, partner as much as you can, speak, start small, don't grow too fast, don't do this too quickly, don't let this go over your head, but slowly build your way up until you're at the point of people actually knowing you. And then you're already half done. Like, this is pretty much half the battle. Then go and register your business. Maybe you do this before, maybe you do this afterwards, but basically you need to go and register it somewhere. I don't really know how it works here in India. I do know how it works in Germany, and it's not that hard. Maybe here it's harder, maybe it's not, I can't really tell because I'm not an expert for that, but I'm pretty sure that most of the people here, most of you, know where at least to go to and to ask these questions and then learn more about how to do the registration process. And then oftentimes the question is like, what kind of company do you want to create? Is it like, for example, a huge one with shares and stocks, or is it like a small one, or you want to be a freelancer first, or a team of freelancers? That's your choice. And I always recommend to take the lean approach and always start small and then grow organically, grow slowly, but grow steadily. And that's the most important thing. So now we're already at Act 3, running the whole thing. Because once you did all that, once you are successful, and once you have the first clients and they actually like you, then you get a good feeling. You know you did go into the right direction. So the first client is pretty much the most important thing that you can have. I was very lucky with my first client because it was a very large company from the US who tends to build operating systems and create amazing browsers. And you can kind of guess who that was, but that was amazing. Because we had a client that actually supported us through the first hard weeks and months and basically says, like, we're always going to have work for you in some way, and this is the client that you want. Be friends with the client, be nice with the client, make sure that they don't drop you, because the first client is the most important thing, and you don't want to get rid of them. Ideally, find someone that you already know from like earlier experience, from your old job or something like this, maybe from bug bounty programs, or someone that you already are in touch with, so they know who you are and you know how they are, because then the communications and the whole process and the whole flow is much, much easier. Sometimes there's weird ways of finding your first client or finding clients in general. Sometimes it's just like binge drinking with them in the evening at a conference, and the next morning you have a contract or a meeting or a briefing call or something like this. Who knows? Everything is possible. Don't exclude the possibility of a weird approach just because it's weird, because it might become your best client whatsoever. Sometimes you receive an email, and that email really sounds weird at first, and you read it once and twice, and it's like, should I really respond to that? But then you do that, and it turns out it's the best client after all. That happens. Don't slam those doors, be open as you can. Then, the boring stuff comes, because then you need to kind of get organized. And getting organized is the most important thing. You need to be able to organize yourself, and that is sometimes so hard. What we started with quite early on, what really worked great for us, was that we made a decision for like an online office solution. You could go with Office 365 or with Google Docs or Google Drive or whatever is out there, but you need to have something that is actually supporting you, a tool that helps you, and a tool that you can use for the next years, because migrating from one solution to the other, that sucks a lot. You never want to do that. There's definitely going to be information loss. So choose wisely what tool you're going to use and then stick with it. Go with what you hate the least. I looked at a couple and one of them I hated the least, so I went with it and we're quite happy with it. Better don't go with a niche product because the company might just go bankrupt, and then what? So better go with something that is like big, that is on the market already, and that is here to stay for the next years. And also have an eye on what your clients are likely to use. The majority of our clients use Google Drive, and they use Slack. So we use Google Drive and we use Slack because then we have a shared interface. We can share documents with them quite easily, and they can share stuff with us. We can invite them into our Slack, or they can invite us into their Slack, and we can chat all the time during the pen test, which is an amazing experience. Always chat with them, always be as close as possible during the assessment. But as mentioned, your mileage might vary, maybe here or somewhere else. People use different software, and then you need to decide. Go with the one that you hate the least, and ideally find something that your clients use as well, because then you're already on the safe side. Tools. There's a lot of tools you can use. And there is actually more tools that you can use that should be there, because most of them are too specific and the company might go bankrupt, as mentioned, and they are not really useful in the long run. So find the tools that you use, that you need to be productive, but don't overdo it. Don't have like 3 different calendar applications at the same time. Go with one. What I use for myself, and I'm kind of trying to use the minimal approach here, is I use a calendar. I'm using the hell out of that calendar. Everything is done by this calendar. This is my anchor, my most important tool. The calendar I can share with others, but it's very, very simple. It's just one tool that pretty much does all the heavy lifting. Then another tool that I have is like this little to-do list next to the calendar. Very, very minimal. This thing tells me what to do today, and the rest of the calendar tells me what to do this week, next week, and in the coming months. Manage your documents well. Make sure that processes that are repetitious, that are being templated by you. Create document templates, manage your documents, be sure that you find what is needed to be found, and kind of organize your file system in a way that it helps you. So basically the tools are there to help you, and you need to force them into a state that they actually do this, and that they ease your life, and don't force you to do things all the time, updates here and updates there, and so on. And the most important thing with getting organized, and that's the very much most important thing, is everything that you do, and everything that you learn, and everything that you talk about with your clients over the phone or over a Skype session and these things, always write it down, always put it into writing, and then confirm it with the client that this is indeed what you talked about. We had so many situations where we had a call with a client, and we agreed on something via voice, and then we didn't confirm with them that indeed that was the thing we talked about, that was the amount of person days, that was the daily rates, and so on. And then they abuse that and says like, no, in the call you said something different. This was 3 weeks ago. It's like, no, I didn't say anything different. Oh, we heard it exactly. So they kind of altered the truth afterwards, and that is something that you need to avoid at all costs. That's part of getting organized. Write down what you agreed on in the phone call, send them an email, have them confirm that this is accurate, and then you have it in writing, and nothing can happen, and you're in the safe. So this often takes time and practice. Like, one doesn't get organized quickly if one wasn't organized before. Believe me, it took me some time, years actually, but at some point you'll notice that you are in this particular stage, and then you actually can work fluently and don't have any road bumps and any hiccups anymore, because everything comes together automatically. And that's the state you want to reach. Start as early as possible. My baby brother once said, oh, I'm a student now, but I don't need a calendar. I keep all that stuff in my hands. Like, dude, absolutely not. You will need a calendar. Start early. Well, now he uses the calendar. So, that was the guy, actually. It's absolutely impossible to keep all the things in your head. Sometimes people pride themselves with having everything in their head, but that is not a viable solution. Believe me, at some point it's going to overflow and you will have no chance to remember all these things. Well, as mentioned, don't overdo it with the tools. There's like so many shitty tools that nobody needs. So make a wise decision, check what you actually need, keep it minimal, use like 3 or 4 or maybe 5 tools to get yourself organized, because that's usually enough. Maybe you need a plugin or an extension or something like this, but make sure that the whole thing is lean, because otherwise the tools are gonna pretty much drown you in their features, and then you don't take any benefits from them at all. Keep it lean. That's like the most important approach here. One thing that is like a personal tool for myself And I started doing that round about 6 to 7 years ago, is working with Mailbox Zero. Who here works with Mailbox Zero? Or knows what I mean with that? Few people, but good, good. Mailbox Zero means that at the end of the day, you pretty much have 0 mails in your inbox. Everything that had to be done was done. You receive an email, you check what's in that email, you respond, and then you archive it so it's gone. And if something then happens, or someone responds back to you, then it will pop up again, and you will see it again, and you will be in the position again of making like an actionable task out of that. But the worst mistake that people are doing is having like this huge overflowing mailboxes and they have no clue what is going on. And I can identify, meanwhile, people who do that, because that's the people that you write an email and nothing comes back. And then you remind them and nothing comes back, and then you remind them again, for example, via Signal or with a call. So it's like, dude, where's the scope information? It's like, oh yeah, I oversaw that email, sorry. I know already, okay, this person does not use Mailbox Zero, and that is problematic, because then important information gets overseen. So doing this, following this pattern, following this approach, in my opinion, is a massive game changer in terms of getting organized. You responded, your task is done, the ball is in the corner of the client or whoever you talk to, archive it. Make sure it's invisible, that you can't see it anymore so it doesn't distract you. No time to respond, which is another small trick. Respond with a question. So like, I'm not really sure what you meant here, could you elaborate please? Archive it, be done, have it solved. Because then they will take some time and get back to you, and maybe when they do, then you will have time again to actually work on this particular task. Make sure that there's nothing in your view, in your mailbox, that distracts you too much. Keep it organized, keep the volume low, make sure you have Mailbox Zero. I can really just encourage you to do this because it's an amazing helper, and once you're there, once you actually reach that stage, that's the top feeling. My approach is usually this. When it goes towards 6 o'clock in the evening, I work towards having the inbox empty. And I know that this is usually not successful because we have lots of clients in different time zones. So when I stop working, they just get up. And then I get tempted, like at 7 o'clock or at 8 o'clock, and I think like, I could maybe have another look at my mailbox and see, oh no, there's like 5 new mails. And then you're back in work mode. Don't do that. Because in the end, if you do this, and if you keep doing this, and if you don't respect the fact that people will write you at all times during the day, A, because of time zones, B, because they're crazy, then you will go crazy as well, and you might indeed fall prone to the risk of burning out, because you will never really stop working, and you shouldn't do this. You should set like a line, pretty much set like a threshold, and then from this moment on, I'm not checking emails anymore. I know that there's like 10 more, but I don't care because my workday is over. Check it the next morning with a fresh eye, and it's better for you, and it's even better for the client because you delivered better quality, and you don't hastily respond and give them the feeling that they're not important. Once you mastered Mailbox Zero, and once you mastered getting organized and have a good feeling about the things that you do that you don't really, you kind of notice in the situation when it actually takes place that you are there, then you can take on bigger dragons and take on bigger projects. And as mentioned, this might take years to get there, but it's worth the work, and I can only but recommend to go there. Another thing that you definitely need to tackle, which is a bit harder, is your own security. You're a security company, so you need to be secure as well. Your website needs to be secure, and your document store needs to be secure, and your coworkers and your team needs to be properly secure. And for that, I think it's important that you know your own threat model. And I often talk to people who say like, yeah, I have like Cubes OS running on my laptop, and I spent like 5 days of setting it up, and now I'm like safe from the NSA. And it's like, man, you're not part of the groups of people that the NSA would monitor. They don't care about you. You find web bugs or server bugs and these things, stuff with like a small or low half-life, they don't care about you. The NSA or whatever agency shouldn't be in your threat model, because they attack other people. Like, you don't have enough candy for them to even notice you. So don't have a threat model that forces you to be overly paranoid and spend your entirety of time with hardening your posture. Because if you go to that point, you will eventually realize that perfect security will kill productivity. Because then you start thinking about this and that, and you take a paranoid approach, and this will consume so much time that you can't use for doing actually useful things. So try to find like a good balance. My good balance, for example, is I know that I'm running Linux, and I know that it's not optimal. I'm running Ubuntu as an operating system, and I know that it's not great. Like, there is definitely security shortcomings in this operating system. I could also run Windows 10, and there would also be security shortcomings or privacy shortcomings here and there. But I don't care too much because in my threat model, I'm actually quite fine. Because lastly, the information that we sit on is bugs that are about to get fixed. And I rather want to be a bit more productive than overly paranoid. One thing, however, that you need to consider is not an external attacker, but the chaos monkey. Something that kind of crashes in your computer, ruins your hard disk, or anything like that, or your cloud storage is being deleted for whatever reason. Mirror everything, back everything up in different locations. I, for example, have 3 different locations where I do automated backups, and I don't think that I can't really lose stuff because they're completely isolated from each other and have nothing to do with each other. So I'm feeling fairly okay. If I lose my laptop today, doesn't matter. Could happen. I mean, I don't want to lose it, but it's not going to throw me back too much. Exercise that, practice it once. What we, for example, do, or what I do once a year, is pretty much play the chaos monkey and just like delete my partition and test how long it takes me to be fully productive again. Meanwhile, I'm at around about 6 hours. And after 6 hours, I'm up and running again. I have everything that I need, my backup is played in, and I can start working again. Of course, there's details here and details there, but if you practice this a little bit, you will be pretty much safe against the chaos monkey that is attempting to kind of destroy your work, and you won't lose data anymore, and you're going to be back on track as quickly as possible. You can use, for example, SVN or Git that is external, and a couple of other tools that basically allow you to do backup. I use SVN as a backup tool. Is that smart? Maybe not, but it works for me, and so far it has saved me multiple times. So I'm doing this. Now about the final act, and this is like the most important act, because as mentioned, we're going to talk about ourselves, we're going to talk about people, about staying sane, because we're all just humans. And a lot of pressure might actually drag us down real hard, and we don't want that. It doesn't make sense to first build something awesome and run it, and then realize that it was too much, and you're burned out and you can't do it anymore, and then what? We don't want to have that. So let's talk about how to actually stay sane and deal with all the pressures and all the challenges that are actually existing in our field and in other fields as well. Sorry. Surviving all the bullshit is one of the most hardest parts in this job, I feel. Because clients will give you so much idiotic feedback where it's like, oh my God, this can't be true. The ideas that they sometimes have, the expectations that they sometimes have are absolutely crazy. And if you let these things go under your skin, this might be really bad. So you shouldn't do this. You should grow a tougher skin and make sure that they can't drag you down with their nonsense. Not all clients, of course. Only a small portion of clients will do this. But this is oftentimes enough to ruin your day. And then ruin it for other clients as well, of course. Usually, or from my experience, like the first clients you have are the nice clients. Because as mentioned, it's probably the people that you already know or had contact with. So they're not going to be nasty to you. But then word goes around and people start to learn about your company and recommend your company, and then eventually you will have your first shit client. Like the first client that is like really annoying and can't be appreciated in any way. Of course, they give you money and you give them services, but in the end, at some point you might realize, oh, I actually don't want your money because no, this is not pleasant. Mentioned, the first ones are usually quite nice and quite fair, but the bad ones will come. And the question is, what do you do with them? That's a bit hard to say. And I think it's like important to kind of first classify them. To classify and categorize the bad clients that you're going to have at some point. Because there's a variety of bad clients that you can have. I call them asterisk holes. Do not be too graphic. So there is the first category of asterisk hole that basically says, your rates are too high. You should be much cheaper. This is such a douche move because effectively the client tells you that your work is bad. How can they even dare doing that? How can they dare telling you that you should be cheaper? You don't go to the car dealership and says like, this is a very nice Mercedes-Benz here, but I just want to pay half because I think that's appropriate. And the car dealer would say like, fuck off, go away. You can do that too. You can be that car dealer. It's just like, ridiculous. They exist and they will come. They will even lie at you. They will say like, well, we have a couple of other vendors on the line as well, and they're much cheaper. Then go with them. Then don't come to us. Go with the other vendors, if that's better. If cheap is important, then go with them. You don't have to deal with that. There's so many clients in the world. How many people does the world momentan inhabit? 6, 7 billion? So many clients. You don't need this one. Then there's another asterisk hole category, and that is, your report was so bad, we're so disappointed. I'm not going to pay you, I'm going to pay you less. We had that. Usually you have a contract that kind of makes these things sure, but we often had clients that kind of stalled us. Our report was excellent. It was really, really good. The team spent a lot of energy, and then the client tries to kind of push the price a little bit by making us feel bad. The first one, the first asterisk call says like, you're too expensive. The second one says like, oh, your work is bad. Kick them out, fire them, don't work with them, you don't need them. The world is big enough. Another category that I'm pretty much confronted with at least once a month, oftentimes even more often, is the sure, next week's test is definitely gonna happen, you reserved the slots for us, we prepared everything, perfectly okay, we're gonna start fresh on a Monday, and on Monday morning you hear nothing from them. And on Tuesday morning you hear nothing from them. And on Wednesday they write just like, yeah, we had a little bit of a delay, and it's like, my team is sitting here and waiting and idling. We're not making money right now, we're just like sitting here and waiting. It's like, yeah, I'm so sorry, can we start next week? No, we can't, because next week we have a different project. We don't have time next week. Oh, can you not move things around? Like, no, we can't. We move things around already for you by giving you a slot and planning and reaching out to you for the preparations, and you didn't answer. We're not going to do this again. It's very, very annoying, but it's another situation where you need to discipline the client and tell them, no, this doesn't fly. We're not going to do it next week. We have this week planned and no other week. At some point they learn. But it's painful. This is like one of the most painful asterisk holds, in my opinion. And then the most important one, we just had this case, it was ridiculous. I'm going to tell the story about this. The client that basically says, we're going to pay you for the work that you did that was defined in the contract. And then we're going to keep sending you emails with questions over and over again and ask for more. Another report, another editing, another version. Here's another question. How do we fix this bug? What is going on here? Can you have a look at this particular thing? Can you do a retest? And they expect this to happen for free. We had one client recently that I fired with a high level of enjoyment that asked for 8 reports. We had one in the contract and they wanted 8 reports in different versions. And then they didn't like what we sent them because we were still friendly to some point, and then they took the PDF and they cracked it open and they modified it as they liked it. And then their CEO reached out and asked like, can I publish this instead? I wrote it how I like it much better. It's like, fuck you. What are you thinking? This is a document with our names on. You can't do this. This is ridiculous. And he's like, oh, apologies. I thought this was okay. It's like, no, this is not okay. So we fired them. We told them that they should just please leave and never come back because we don't need them. They need us. We don't need them. And I think this is a good methodology at some point when you're strong enough as a company to just like fire the clients that you don't need. Some clients are really nice. The majority of clients are really nice. We have a lot of clients that we really, really love because they're amazing and they're supportive and they respect that we work with them on pretty much the same height. Like pretty much without this condescending relationship of vendor, client, and so on. This is amazing. You're going to have a lot of them as well if you're really good, and you should keep them. But the ones that act like enraged 5-year-olds, you need to get rid of them because they give you no value at all. And they're annoying, they take your time, and they stress you so much that at some point you don't enjoy your job anymore, you don't enjoy your work anymore, and that's the last thing that should happen. So if you have a client that is really unpleasant, fire them. You can fire clients. And at some point, you might actually enjoy that feeling when you actually do this. Like, it's enough is enough, get the fuck out. So that's good. And you should really do this, if it's necessary. At some point, and that is something that you need to train as early on as possible, is tell apart the good clients from the bad clients. Sometimes in the initial phase, it might be a bit bumpy. Don't fire them then. Wait a little bit, give them some chance, give them some time, because maybe you first need to tell them how you function, and you need to learn how they function, and after some weeks or after some projects together, you will realize that they're actually quite great. So give them some time, but also, as mentioned, fire them if needs be. If you realize after some weeks that everything is like a mess, and everything is like bumpy, and the test is not well planned from them, they're unprepared, and they give you a couple of these asterisk whole categories, if that already goes bad, then how can you expect that the invoicing process is going to be smooth? Because there is going to be the next problems and more pain for you and zero pain for them because they're just asterisk codes. So, another thing that helps you with these things, and that is something that I rarely experience from other security companies, at least not as often as I would hope to, partner up a lot. Partner with other small firms. Make sure that you build up a network of small firms that are similar to you. Work with them because you're not competitors. As mentioned, the market is huge. There is no need to kind of steal each other's projects. Rather the contrary. Invite them to join your project if the contract allows. Tell the client that you partner up with someone else to kind of handle the project and build up a network of friendly other companies around you. I know a couple of companies in Berlin who for a long time didn't partner at all. They were just like pretty much like a fortress. And then there was a managerial change and they opened up. And ever since then, they've been doing much, much better. We're a partner with them. We work together. We have a fantastic time. And we oftentimes do it in a way that when a client reaches out to us and says like, well, we want to have a penetration test. Okay. It's probably going to be 15 person days. Okay. And it should happen next week. That's not going to fly. We don't have time next week. Oh, that's too bad. But we have to do this next week. Still not going to fly. But we have a couple of partner companies that are really good. I can recommend them. And then you just send the client there. And everybody's happy. You're happy because you don't have to kind of overplan things. The partner is happy because they get a cool job from you. And the client is happy because they get their stuff done on time. And they have the feeling that you're not there to kind of squeeze money out of them and kind of pressure something that is not even necessary or won't yield good results. But you have their security in your best interest. So you're just like passing them on to the next best partner and everybody wins. Partnering is also a thing that will be helping you to survive Q4. Who knows what I mean with that? Surviving Q4, like the fourth quarter of the year. Yeah, that's the direst of all times, because in Q4, there is so much budget left and it needs to be poured out on some people. So in Q4, at some point, once you're like more well-known as a company, everybody will come and want their pen test. People come 6 months in advance just to make sure that they get a slot in September or October or something like this. And you will definitely be close to a burnout in this quarter because the workload is insane. Everything always seems to happen in Q4. Q1 is then usually very, very calm. You can relax again. But Q4 is darkness. I mean, tons of work, tons of money, most probably tons of challenges. But I would be close to say that in this particular quarter, and this is what we experience, it's just too much. But if you have partners where you can share the workload with, it's much easier. Just give them some projects and they do something with you, and so on. You share the pressure with others, and again, that makes everybody happy, makes you happy, makes your partners happy, makes your clients happy, and everybody wins in the end. I mean, of course, partnering might fail, and your partner might be another asterisk hole, and you might get burned, but quite honestly, that never happened to us. And I think it's worth the risk of that happening, because the benefits are just like so big. So, Q4, as mentioned, be prepared for this. It's a really tough quarter, and the more well-known you are and the more clients you get, the more work will come at you in Q4. We meanwhile have like a meeting in the team where we basically say like, okay, everybody brace yourselves, Q4 is coming and it's gonna be bad. And we have like mechanisms how I can make sure that people don't get too much work, they can kind of opt out and say like, hey, I need a week off, I can't do it anymore because it's too much, and so on and so on. You will find your tools, you will find your mechanisms that allow you to do this. But make sure that in this quarter you don't burn out because it ever goes so quickly. I myself had the problem last year. Last year I was close to a burnout, like full on, like the non-funny parts with like getting panic attacks and crying all of a sudden, like all these things, just being completely done. Make sure that this doesn't happen to you because it's all about the fun of the work that you will have, and it's not worth to burn out. And there's always tools and mechanisms that can prevent that from happening. Don't value the money and the work too much, also value yourself, because that's in the end the most important part. Don't underestimate it, because burnout is a dire thing. It's hard to recover from that. It takes a lot of time. Once you're really in that particular zone, it might take months, maybe even years for you to get back. I know a couple of people who had burnout and they were gone, they were like disappearing from the field for an entire year. You don't want this to happen to you, so be very respectful of your own boundaries and your own pressure levels that you can take, and make sure that this doesn't happen to you. And if it means that you can't do a certain project and you have to delay it, then so be it. You are more important than the project. Your health is more important than the projects. You need to, however, learn that your pressure levels and the amount of pressure that you can take will grow over time. Like you will get used to things. As mentioned, you will grow a thicker skin, and eventually you will be like strong enough to kind of take a workload that you couldn't take 2 years ago, but you can take it now. And maybe in the future years you will be able to take even more. But don't overdo it. Don't test yourself too hard. It's not worth it. Effectively, the only thing that you need or that you can do here is like look at yourself. observe yourself and ask your peers, how am I doing? Do I kind of give you the impression that I'm close to a burnout? Is everything still okay? And they will likely help you and tell you, well, you are quite erratic recently, so you should be taking care a little bit. If they say something like that to you, or if they show you concern, respect that and actually follow their advice and step down a little bit from the extreme pressure that you're giving yourself. Don't burn out, because you're the most important part in this company that you're building. And your team is the most important part in this thing that you're building. So also watch out for others. Help others by telling them if you have the feeling that it's the time that they should kind of step back a little bit. So, we're almost at the end of the presentation. And let's sum it up. Be organized. Organize yourself. That's the most important thing. Be more organized than your clients, because they will come at you and they won't be organized, perchance. Be open. Be open for new things to come in. Don't kind of lock everything down. Be open for partnering, sometimes for interesting or for weird clients. Just accept them and see what happens, because what could go wrong? Be strict. Make sure that the client follows your rules as well. You follow the client's rules, they have to follow your rules. Be stubborn. If something doesn't go the way you want it, try to make that this happens. Kind of tell the client that it doesn't fly if they want this and this and that and that, and then change directions. Tell them what the track is on which you and the client can actually navigate together. And last but not least, needless to say, be brilliant. Be always as good as you can in what you do, and don't lose the fun, because the fun is pretty much the fuel for brilliance. So make sure that you have fun in your job, then the brilliance will come. Organize yourself, be strong, stand for yourself, watch out for your team, don't burn out, and then you're gonna have a good time. So last but not least, be mindful. It's still just jobs, it's still just work, it's still just projects, it's not life and death. You're still the most important part as the human, and please never forget that. If you burn out, if you can't deliver what you like to deliver anymore, then no one wins, and no one wants that. So, I think we've reached the end of the presentation, and I hope that now you have some pointers that might help you building your own thing and staying sane in the process. As mentioned, your mileage may vary, and there was probably a lot of things that were specific to us or specific to others, but I think at least there's a couple of common ground that we can see in this presentation that might help you to actually kind of do your thing and end up as being very, very happy. And that's the most important thing. So just know, if you're unhappy as an employee or unhappy with what you're doing right now, it doesn't have to be like this. You have the power to create your own thing. It can be fun. It doesn't have to be. It can also fail. But usually it goes quite well, and it's likely going to be cool. And one thing that is most important to say right now in Infosec, we're living in the fat years where there's projects and clients all over the place. We never had that much work as we have right now because of regulations and the general situation and the news reporting on hacker attacks and whatnot. These are the fat years. Now is the time to actually get started. And why not? Try not to be a whale. Try not to kind of grow too much. Stay like a wasp or a hornet. Stay agile and small and dangerous and edgy. Stay or become the team that you want to be, build what you want to have, and pretty much then there's nothing in the way between you and a successful project and a successful company and you being happy in the end. Don't be too data-driven, be value-driven. Help your clients, help your team, help yourself, and have a good time. So maybe it's time right now. Maybe this inspires people here to create their own company and just see whether it works or not. I think now is a good time, so why not try it right now? And I wish you the best of luck, and that's all that I have. Thank you very much.